Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Chris Longo, Head of Sales and Marketing for AOPEN. Want to thank you for joining Pivoting Digital Signage to Drive Engagement Post-COVID. So what we're looking at doing here is not only focus on how to get in front of customers, but how do you drive your brand awareness with real dynamic content. So today we have Scott from UPshow is one of the leading experts, along with AOPEN's leading technology solutions engineers, Miles Schofield. On a quick note, just want to point out that we do have time for Q&A at the end of the session. So please feel free to use the question and answers section, post to all panelists, and then we'll be sure to get to those questions, as many as we can at the end. If not, we will definitely reach out via email. Following the presentation, we'll also send out the slide deck with a copy of the video as well, so that way you can share it accordingly with anyone that may or may not have been able to make the call. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and kick things off, and we'll turn the presentation over to Miles Schofield.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again today for this AOPEN webinar. My name is Miles Schofield, if you haven't heard from me before. So I'm really happy to have a good partner, UPshow, with their CRO, Scott Iksanovich, here today. Really excited about this, particularly because UPshow is a digital signage solution provider that has found a lot of great success this year. They've gotten a lot of press about it, and it's really because they're, in my opinion, they're starting down the path of what I always call digital signage 2.0. I've been talking about it for years. It's when you finally have digital signage that's content aware, reactive, interactive, very timely, all those sort of things. So Scott's, of course, is going to do a company introduction. He's going to talk about how their business delivers their solution, and of course, the solution itself and a lot of their success stories. What I'm going to talk about is one of those topics that I've been talking about for years, is really that digital signage 2.0 idea. How, where's the content coming from? What type of content actually grabs eyeballs? And so I want to introduce this concept of, timely versus relevant content, which is so crucial to what people consume today. I was thinking about talking about OTT versus live content, but that doesn't have much to do with digital signage, so we'll do that some other time. So, and then of course, just close it out with some of the services that AOPEN offers great partners like UPshow. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Scott to get you started.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Miles. Bear with me here while I pull up our screen. And there we are. So first and foremost, thanks so much to our gracious hosts from AOPEN, that being Chris, Miles, and Julie. It's been a pleasure to work with you over the course of the last few years, and very excited to be a part of today's webinar. So just again, as background, I'm Scott Iksanovich. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at UPshow. We like to call ourselves TV Built for Brands. We're a Chicago-based company, and very excited to be here today. So from an agenda perspective, we'll spend the next 20 or so minutes talking through just a little bit as to who UPshow is. And then we'll talk about how we really partner with AOPEN and what that partnership has meant to us, and continue to help grow our business. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll round things out for my portion from why organizations choose UPshow. So why do they look to us, and what do they look to us to solve for? And then I'll flip it back over to Miles, and excited to have him talk a little bit about his timely versus relevant content. It's an excellent talk track, so excited to do that. So without further ado, we can jump right into this. So who UPshow is. So we were really designed and created with the purpose of millions of marketing dollars are spent annually driving consumers off of their couch and to the front door of venues across the country and globally. But not much time is really spent on driving the right behaviors of those customers when they're inside the four walls of the particular venue. And that's really where UPshow comes into play. And as I just alluded to, TV Built for Brands. What we really try to focus on is when a patron is present inside of a venue, and I show a hospitality or bar and restaurant venue here. However, we power experiences in hospitality, so bars and restaurants, in the fitness space, whether that's a gym, a studio, or sort of a club, in the healthcare space, whether it's a waiting room or exam room, operatory room, or even what we like to consider essential retail environments or education environments. We really help drive the behaviors that are at the intersection of the brand's most important desires and the consumer or patient's desires. So what we mean by that is what things are most important for the brand to drive home, and then what is most important for that consumer to actually ingest, and how do we drive that messaging to ensure that we're delivering on what's most important for each particular touch point. And how do we do that? So we do that by layering in captivating entertainment and valuable education, which helps draw the eyeballs of the consumers to the screens. Once we do that, we intermix targeted messaging, which drives sort of a behavior or an action from that particular customer or patient, and ultimately leads to this ideal experience. And we're able to do all of that empowered by sort of our enterprise cloud software. So with that, it leads us perfectly into why we partner with AOPEN. Because while we have incredible software and what we believe to be next generation content, you need a hardware provider, and you really need a hardware partner to really bring this all to light. So when we were coming to market and trying to decide how are we going to deliver our content on tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of screens across the country, we really needed to find a hardware provider that was going to see and share the same vision that we have for our business. And we were so fortunate to come across the folks here at AOPEN. And the reason being is at the one of the core tenets of both of our businesses is we are both driven by the success of our customer. And I think that is really, really important anytime that you're looking for a partner to, and really what I'd like to say is not a vendor, but a true partner for your business. You need to find somebody that has the same sort of core tenets to their business. And again, that is driven sort of by the success of our customer base. But a couple other things that they bring to the table that we really enjoy is, one, they bring a commercial grade device, which is really important. So whether that is in a local bar restaurant, or this is for a 10,000 sort of footprint health system, we are bringing a commercial grade device that allows us to power our software and not have sort of the fails that you might see using a residential type piece of hardware. That also, as you talk about commercial grade device, it allows it to be long lasting, right? So it allows us to have a piece of hardware that lasts longer than just a year, because our partners are signing 36-month to 60-month agreements with us. So ensuring that we have a hardware device that can stand up to the test. The accessories, I think, are really important. We'll talk about that here in a second. It's not just the media player, right, and the piece of hardware. There's all sorts of different peripherals that come with that, whether it be the cords or Velcro strips, things of that nature, which we'll talk about here in a second. Their ability to coordinate logistics and to ensure that all things get done in a timely manner. When you're working with large Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 brands, they have very, very strong expectations on when things get delivered, how they get delivered, and what that all looks like. And the ability to work with AOPEN and their flexibility around logistics has been excellent. They're built for enterprise scale. So again, just talking about these large businesses, the ability to be able to manage hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of locations built for scale is important for us. And lastly, they have top-notch customer service. So when there are issues and things come up, we know we have a partner on the backside of this that is there to sort of provide us that level 1 support. So what does this all look like? So we leverage the Google Chromebox Mini by way of AOPEN. And what's important to us with this product and to our partners is it's easy installation. It being an easily installed product is really important. This idea that there's instructions included, and we bundle that with all of the different materials, things like an HDMI port that allows you to take the media player and plug it right into the TV behind you. We pre-configure these devices. So prior to them ever hitting sort of our customers' desks or tables, we ensure that once you plug this thing in, it is playing and loaded with the UPshow software to ensure that these things are ready to roll, or what we like to call plug and play. And then lastly, the Wi-Fi and the Ethernet opportunity. So this doesn't have to just be tethered to an Ethernet cord, and it doesn't just have to be dependent on Wi-Fi given certain bandwidth constraints in certain environments. And all of these things provide a level of flexibility that are very important to us. So what's important when we look to a partnership with AOPEN is someone that gives us the flexibility and the enterprise scale that we need, and then our ability to take the piece of hardware and bundle it all up with the instructions, so on and so forth. So by the time it gets to the hands of our end customer, all they have to do is plug the device in and set it to Wi-Fi or plug it into the internet, and they're off to the races. So with that, I'll just pivot over to quickly talk a little bit about why organizations partner with us. So I know I just talked a little bit about why we partner with AOPEN, and now I think it's important that we talk a little bit about why organizations partner with us. I think first and foremost, and Miles just touched on this from the outset, we've been able to have a lot of success this year during a time that was sort of uncertain for a lot of folks. And the biggest reason why is we align everything we do to our customers' bottom line. So we're really trying to understand what is most important to our customers. And during sort of unprecedented times and uncertainty, a lot of folks were looking to reduce cost. How could they get costs out of the business that weren't really that important, or what we'll call supplemental? So what we like to do is we like to talk a lot about how we can help our organizations cut costs. The first way we help do that is with our enterprise cloud software. You'll find, especially in enterprise cases, that many of them have multiple vendors doing several different things. And once you get into our software and start to understand what it can do, you'll realize you can consolidate a lot of those into our one platform, which is great. But let's just think about a couple other ancillary things that have been super successful in the past, however, just slightly outdated. So when you start to think about cable TV or traditional cable television or direct TV, there's been this huge movement towards cord cutting and getting out of the space that is traditional cable television, because it doesn't always provide the goal that you're really trying to get across to your customer at that time. Or let's just think about paper signage, whether that's table tents or posters on the wall. There's an opportunity to reduce some of these costs, and you'll find that our technology is able to deliver that. And then I gave some other examples here on how we can help drive revenue from a top line perspective. And these are written out for hospitality type environments, whether you're trying to increase the check size of a patron while they're there with limited time offers, whether you're trying to drive more repeat visits through loyalty signups or downloads, or whether you're trying to generate new customers through organic word of mouth marketing. We'll touch on a couple of those things and how we're able to do that here in a second. But this is really the crux of why folks are looking at an organization like ours. We like to talk about ourselves as the in-venue engagement cloud. So our platform activates people that are present inside the venue, and we drive sort of behavior from all of the most important points of action. So whether that's the mobile device in the hands of the consumer or the patron, whether that is the television that's on the wall, or whether that's the point of sale system or the computers and screens in the back of the house or back office for some of our partners, we're able to sort of bring all of this together in one seamless platform that drives the behaviors that are most important. So how do we do this? We joke this is sort of our secret sauce. So it's really made up of 3 industry-leading components. The first is entertainment, the second being promotion, and the last being sort of the analytics. So let's just talk about entertainment for a second. It's really important to talk about timely and relevant content, which Miles will speak to here shortly. But we really bring a dynamic idea to the content perspective. There's all sorts of static content or big asset libraries of things. Those things are great. But what is most important for the particular experience you're trying to drive today? I'll give you an example. A waiting room experience at a doctor's office might be looking for one particular content experience that might be very, very different than a fast casual restaurant where someone's walking in, They might only have 2 to 6 minutes from the time they order and pick up their food and walk out, which could also be different than an education type environment, whether that's a cafeteria at a university or a K through 12 environment. We have to ensure that the content on the screen is really relevant and captivates and draws the eyes of the patrons and the consumers and the patients to the screen. Assuming we can draw their eyeballs to the screen is when we start to layer in some of the on-brand promotion that's really important. So we provide things like live streaming of sporting events, hundreds of channels from news, weather, hyperlocal, high school sports related stuff, all the way through social media integrations and trivia. So I show some examples here. One of the big driving forces today is trivia. So you start to think about, this is something that really helps level the playing field for really large organizations to really small organizations. We all know what it's like to go to our local bar or pub and engage in sort of the trivia night. And that's great, but that was paper-based, and it required sort of like a DJ or a monitor to being able to do it. And then you got to take it up, they got to count the scores, and they got to do all that stuff. But then even think about the really large enterprise brands that are like, oh, we've been doing trivia forever. Well, there were pieces of hardware you had to use. There were things that you had to plug the number into and the answer into, and you had to touch that. That was a shared touch device. Pre-COVID, I think there were plenty of people that said, it's fine, I'll touch the device and use the device that the folks prior to me were using. Post-COVID, or in the midst of COVID, it's become a bring your own device type environment. You only want to touch your own stuff during these things. So we use the mobile device to be the activating point to trivia. So trivia is playing up on the screens, and your personal mobile device becomes the remote control to play that game. So you start to think about all the different ways that we can drive the behaviors that are really, really important, whether that is to lower anxiety in a healthcare environment, whether that's to lower perceived wait time when you're waiting for your food or waiting in a long line, or whether that's just to provide entertainment for your companions who are joining you. You could be at a sports bar and some folks are watching the game and the other people are there to partake in the fun and festivities, but they don't really have interest in the sporting event. So how can you bring things to the screen that provide relevant content to them? So one thing that I wanted to walk everybody through is just this idea of how does this look on the screen and how does this all come to life? So we created sort of a dummy walkthrough here, but just bear with me as you think about walking into a fast casual restaurant. So when you think about a fast casual restaurant, you might think about a Chipotle or a sub shop like a Jersey Mike's or a Subway or something of that nature. And that screen is positioned somewhere facing the line, right? Somewhere from the time that you walk into the environment to the time you get up to start ordering your food and ultimately check out. So let's think about this. So there's a screen on the wall, you're waiting in a 6 to 8 person line, and this screen welcomes you in. So it welcomes you in and they talk to you about all of the different sort of dining experiences that they provide. From there, then let's talk about relevant messaging, right? This is something that has been so challenging for so many businesses to do during this time. The messaging seems to constantly be changing around what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. There are organizations that will say, hey, we need you to stand outside until there's a certain number of people that are, leave, or we need you to stand on certain markings when you're inside. Please use the hand sanitizer, wash your hands. Of course, you have to be wearing a face covering. All of these different sort of COVID relevant messaging is really, really important. And what we found is the alternative to doing sort of this real-time digital contactless messaging was to write it on a piece of paper and tape it on the front of your door that said, hey, make sure to wear a mask and make sure to stand on the red markings on the floor and move sort of along accordingly. This is a great opportunity to be able to leverage your screens to be able to deliver this type of messaging. So once you've gotten in, they've welcomed you in, they've shared with you the most important messaging to ensure that you have a safe experience while you're there. Now let's start talking about what's most important. You're in there, you're hungry, you're looking at the menu, you're trying to decide what to do. A lot of folks go to social media. They try to figure out what looks good here. What have other people ordered from here? Now, all of a sudden, you might be looking to get to this brand's particular social media page. Great opportunity to look at what the items look like, but also an opportunity to post your experience. So we've all seen and we all have friends who take pictures of their food and post it, right? That is a huge driver and restaurants love that. It's a huge opportunity to sort of drive sort of organic word of mouth marketing. So that's where we talk about helping attract new customers. If you post a great experience, you post your food, it's a great way to help drive new folks in. This is applicable anywhere, whether you're at a sporting event, whether you're at a gym. You'd be surprised how many folks love to post this experience when they're in a gym environment. But just a great way to help sort of create an influencer and sort of a great word of mouth organic marketing channel. But another way to do it, even when you start to think about environments where posting to social doesn't make a lot of sense. So when you start to think about education, or you start to think about healthcare, where you start to think, hey, you know what? Driving folks in through social media isn't a big part of what we do. Well, let's now talk about search. So there's social, and now we have search. Is there an opportunity to help post reviews? So how do we get folks to talk about how great their experience was and help show how great patient or customer satisfaction was, and post these things out onto Google or Yelp? We know how valuable posting to Google and Yelp really is to ultimately driving your consumer base in. So just another great example of how we're able to help drive new folks in. But what about repeat visits? Everybody's looking to figure out how we get people to come in more frequently. So we're talking about more repeat visits. So if you're going through the line now, you've gotten your messaging, you got some stuff where you looked at social media, you figured out what food you want to get. Now all of a sudden the screen tells you, but you could get a free dessert today. And you're like, well, how can I get a free dessert today? That sounds great. And then all of a sudden it says, hey, just scan this QR code to join our loyalty program. And now you've joined a loyalty program. So we're at the crux again of that intersection of what does the brand look for, which is we're looking to get their patrons into their loyalty program. And what does the consumer want? The consumer's there, they're hungry, they're trying to figure out what they want to eat. Hey, everybody loves a free sort of dessert or food item. So an opportunity to blend those two things together would drive great behaviors. And then you start to think about how do you get them to spend a little bit more money once they're inside of the venue. So you talk about where your food is from. It's locally sourced. It's organic. Have you thought about adding guacamole or fresh avocado or bacon to one of your sandwiches? Things of that nature to really start to drive the behaviors that are both most important to both parties. And so as we talk through this, I think it's really important, as we mentioned, we're trying to captivate the audience in some way and draw their eyeballs to the screen with that really relevant entertainment. So again, whether it's trivia, whether it's live sports, news, live streaming of a UFC or golf event, whatever it takes to draw the eyeballs to the screens. But instead of going to your everyday type commercial environment, what if you went to the commercials that were spot on for that particular brand? When you're able to do that, you're able to drive great behavior. And an example coming from our partners at Chick-fil-A is in one single location, we were able to drive an additional 75 app downloads, which represented sort of a 14% boost across their footprint. And that's really impactful because all of a sudden it's starting to show the validity that this stuff works when you activate customers when they're inside the four walls, when they are most present and most tied to your brand and taking an action. And the last piece of this is really analytics. So again, we talked about entertainment. We talked about layering in the on-brand type promotions to drive the behaviors that are most important. But now we tie it all together with sort of cloud-based controls and insights. So what you'll see on the left screen there is this idea that it's built for enterprise scale. You can control and push content to one screen in one location in one particular part of your region, all the way to content across your entire footprint. And that's really compelling when you start to think about large enterprise businesses leveraging this technology. But the other thing that I think is super important that everybody is looking for and expects, frankly, and should expect in a software-made world is the ability to get real-time analytics on everything that you're doing. So we just showed this example of Chick-fil-A seeing this huge increase in sort of their app downloads. That's not UPshow and AOPEN going back to the customer and saying, hey, look, you plugged in this media player and used the software and it's so great. Let me tell you all the great things that happened about it. This is live in the back end of your system. So when you log into your account, you will see every campaign that's running on every screen across your footprint and the type of behavior that's happening. How many impressions did you get? How many engagements, and ultimately how many conversions and how many dollars were generated from those types of behaviors? And then it gives you the ability to A/B test it, to say, hey, this is working in this region during this time of day. It's not working in this region during this time of day. How can we tweak these things to be best suited to ultimately align with what our customers are most desiring. And I think that's really important. The ability to try things, track them, and drive the right behaviors is most important. So with that, everything gets all bundled up and tied together with, again, this industry-leading hardware. So you take the software and the hardware bundle, you bundle them together, we ship them out the door, our customers plug them in, and then you sort of watch the magic happen. So again, just to recap, before I hand it over to Miles, exactly the 4 main reasons why folks purchase our solution and look to UPshow and AOPEN for these type of offerings is, one, we're revenue focused, right? So we're trying to ensure that you're making money, you're here to survive and thrive in this environment and in a better environment. We provide premium entertainment. So if you're looking to have someone sit for a long, long time and enjoy a long experience, we've got the premium entertainment. We have the opportunity to provide real-time contactless messaging in a way that drives the message that's important to our brands. And then lastly, it's plug and play, right? We tie it all together with industry-leading hardware that ensures that our customers have the ability to run their business, and UPshow and AOPEN are delivering them an experience on their screens that they don't have to worry about. So with that, I will flip it over to Miles.
Thanks, Scott. So thanks again, Scott. That was great. What I'm basically going to be doing in my section is just reinforcing a lot of the ideas that Scott put forth that I think are just super important about the way that people consume content in a lot of those key actions like content awareness, user awareness, driving the bottom line, driving engagement. And so the primary technique and trend that I want to first look at and start to describe is this idea of live content, because this is the one that most people are familiar with, right? This is obviously a primary driver of eyeballs and in restaurants and bars and things like that. And it's becoming just more and more important. And I'll elaborate on that point going forward. So you can see 86 of the top 100 broadcasts make sense. It's Olympics, it's MMA events, it's sporting events. They're all live, right? The other main thing, though, that Scott brought up briefly is that, this whole, you keep hearing in the news about everyone's going to cut the cord and move to these different services and things like that. And consumers have made it perfectly clear that live events are incredibly important to them. And we know that. Lots of people show up to bars and restaurants specifically to watch premium events and most likely live events. So just as Scott said, that live event is there and people are engaging with it. And then whether or not it's interlaced directly or has a companion screen, what you really want to talk about is, now that we have eyeballs up there, how do we actually draw people's eyes to additional information, like all the branding stuff, and then get into the ads. So all that stuff that UPshow makes possible on a companion-esque screen would be those sort of gambling, social media, live analysis, interactive trivia. And once you have them looking up there, right, and looking at that relevant information about that live event, that content awareness, then that's when you show them that call to action for, the free wings or the free dessert or whatever, right? So I'm gonna expand on this idea through my slides. So the main thing I want to focus on is the progression of people consuming timely media, right? So we all know live television is timely media, right? Most people watch sports on the day it's broadcast, right? But I wanted to quickly hit other types of timely media as well that I think are very important. Of course, news, right? News is now a 24-hour cycle. You can watch it all day, every day, multiple stations, multiple viewpoints, and it's just constantly being produced. That's 24 hours of television content per day that you could watch. And it's extremely timely, but it expires extremely fast, a lot of it. And I'm going to talk about the different types of it. So, I mean, how many of you have gone back and watched a 24-hour session of CNN from last week? Probably none of you, because all those sort of viewpoints and ideas have sort of expired. Everyone's always wants to watch something that's live and something that's new, right? That's the most challenging thing, especially when you look at it from a digital signage standpoint, because content's so expensive. How do you create 24 hours of new media for digital signage every day? And, as Scott said, it's all about bringing in all those pieces of timely, timely media for people to consume, because that's what they're used to consuming anyway, and that's the trend, right? So the other piece of timely media that's become more and more important are, of course, live stream and social media. If you don't know what a live stream is, it's basically an individual streaming themselves doing an activity like hiking or playing video games or playing music or things like that. And the majority of the responses I always get about live stream is, why would I ever want to watch someone play a video game? And the way that you should really think about it is that these people are effectively reality TV stars. You know, a lot of their streamer houses where they basically act like reality TVs. You know, they talk about their relationships while they play video games and things like that. So you're not watching just to see someone play a video game, you're watching because of the personality. Any one of these people could be a reality TV show star on their own. If you're getting, 70,000 people watch you per night play a video game, it's not just for the video game, right? Last thing that people, of course, consume that's live, up to date is, of course, social media. We all know people who just sit there and scroll through their Facebook, Instagram, TikTok all day, every day, and those videos keep coming and are produced. YouTube has, thousands and thousands of top videos every single day that is telling you to watch, that are brand new from all the latest content creators. So that, once again, that media is incredibly timely. It refreshes. It's, you get basically 24 hours of new stuff that you can watch every single day. So the reason why that's important, not only from a consumer standpoint, but it's also interesting from the brand standpoint. So I put Kylie on here. She's actually 5th in terms of influencers, but I think she's very important because she's the one who actually became famous and then started her brand instead of vice versa. So Rock and some other musicians are ahead of her, but she actually drives and is her brand ambassador specifically through social media. And the best way you can think about the value of that in terms of how to interact, just imagine if she didn't post anything on her social media for like 5 days. People would be going crazy, right? You have to keep that constant stream of information and engagement coming, right? So to sort of solidify this idea on what people are engaging with and how people engage with it is that you can sort of have timely and relevant content, right? Timely content is, of course, all stuff we're familiar with, going to the bar to watch, right? Live events, live streams, concerts, and then this whole new idea of, that constant feed of YouTube, TikTok, highlight reels, all those, that massive amount of content coming in through YouTube on a daily basis that you most likely talk with your friends about, right? Now, on the flip side is that high decay type of content, which is extremely relevant at the time, but no one's going to watch it past yesterday, right? You have all these reactionary YouTubers, live streamers, news is a lot of reactionary. But the other thing that you can really drive interaction is interactive, right? So sporting events going on, just as I talked about it, you can bet on it, you can gamble on it. And just as Scott mentioned, localized. The more localized the information is on that sort of companion screen that could be talking about the restaurant or what's on the TV with the content awareness, that's when you really connect with the people, your customers in your business. So both understanding these two type of contents, why they exist and how people consume them on a modern basis is really important when you approach, what type of content do I actually want to put on my screens and my digital signage in a retail environment. So to give you an idea of a different way to think of this is that when we look at certain types of content, the news, it can be both timely and relevant, right? Everyone can go into a bar and they'll have the news on, right? However, the way I like to look at it is that you can watch something timely, which is like a political debate. It doesn't have to be a political debate. It could be the news covering the Olympics or whatever. And then you have reactionary news. A lot of what's on 24-hour news stations is reactionary because they're just talking about stuff that happened. They're talking about the debate. They're talking about the Olympics. They're talking about whatever. And it's just their take on what's going on during the day. So is it going to be relevant 2 days from now? Probably not. Like I said, you're not going to go back and watch, Fox 24-hour news cycle from last Thursday, right? So that's extremely high decay. Now, the actual news content, which is timely, is say, there's been some investigating reporting, and then they come out. These are sort of the news stories that sort of have like a week sort of or a monthly cycle, right? Some news comes out with some important investigative reporting, but then if you have that on your screen, let's say you play that on your screen in your retail establishment, but then you can even have reactionary media to that. So it could be other news stories, right? If a news agency comes out, every single news has to react to it. Social media has to react to it. Streamers have to react to it. So there's always this content loop, immediate content loop. And that's going to be focused more and more localized as we move forward. Once people get more and more used to interacting on their phone, interacting with these screens, and pushing their opinions directly into the information around them, right? So I wanted to highlight the importance that I view of live stream in the future. To give you an idea, I had Tucker Carlson up there. He's obviously the most watched anchor in the United States. He gets 4.3 million viewers a night. But Twitch has about 15 million unique viewers a night. So why do most people know about Tucker Carlson but not know about Twitch? Well, Twitch is 15 million global, so it's much tougher for advertisers to interact with. The advertising model is different. It's very expensive to make money in live streaming. So this is still a nut that hasn't been able to be cracked. But to reiterate the huge value behind it is that, like I said, these are basically reality stars showing, you can watch them take vacations, watch them play games, watch them have house parties. There's TikTok houses, there's streamer houses, and everything that can be talked about in the chat or in reaction videos. If they do something cool, it's clipped and then it's posted to YouTube and everything. So you have this huge content engine for your signage that's just there. Right. And as these type of individuals become more and more well-known, then they're going to be creating just content engines that are going to fill screens and establishments and drive user behavior and brand behavior. Right. The tricky part is people are just trying to figure out how to monetize them. What I think is going to be absolutely massive is this sort of idea of these reality TV shows and then having more of an interactive element aside from chat, all this sort of betting. You bet how many, if you can make a jump or beat a boss in 3 tries or something, they're going to have loyalty points. Those loyalty points are going to feed into whatever restaurant you're at. I mean, it's going to be really, really interactive, right? You're constantly going to be interacting with the media around you and giving opinions, right? So that brings me to the whole point in terms of interacting with media around you. And this is the gap that I always talk about. It's always about how do we get more localized? When you're on a website, they know everything about you. Amazon knows everything, Google, right? Who you are, what you bought, who your family is, absolutely everything. And the big gap is that retailers just don't know anything until you bought something. They know where you are, right? If you walk into McDonald's in Seattle, they probably think you're from Seattle, and they probably can guess your viewpoints on a number of topics and what you're probably going to order, things like that. But otherwise, they got nothing. So the main point I always make is that this gap has to close. It just has to close, and it's using these systems like these loyalty programs and these interactive, and some brands have done this very well, where you download the app and it immediately interacts with what stores you go to. It knows what you order and things like that. So it's companies like UPshow that are driving this ability to know more and cater more to your customers and interact with more of your customers outside of the pure web environment. So that's going to be driven by stuff like Scott mentioned, right? Just how Google offers a free search, right? They need to be driven by things like loyalty programs. You're going to be betting on the game with your McDonald's loyalty points or your Dave & Buster's loyalty points. You're going to be betting on some streamer or some TV show, or you're going to answer some trivia and gain bonus points. Or if you go in twice a week, you're going to get bonus points and stuff like that. Basically, every brand, in my opinion, has to do something like that to get more information about their users so they can create a much better, more online type of experience, right? And the big battle here is that the Google and all these huge web companies already have such a foothold on all that data, they don't necessarily want to share it with anyone else. So I actually view a lot of retailers as coming from behind right now. So it's going to take technology like UPshow to really bridge all these systems together to really start to engage with your customers in a positive way. So just to talk about, the typical thinking of just a content-driven model, you have cable TV, and you have some loop next to it that's just, showing sweet shots of wings for, next to it. And the whole idea is that you can have that really timely content, everyone's there to watch, and you can have those ads, but you need to interlace it with, trivia, reactionary news, reactionary social media, interactive, local news update, all that sort of extremely relevant and timely material, that reinforces that content awareness and increases that engagement from the customer. So, but where we're looking at really with the future model, the way I think about it is that, sure, you're still going to have that timely content. It's going to be some famous streamer, or it's going to be a live event, or it's a concert, or it's going to be, the news as usual, right? And you're going to have all that stuff, but just as Scott said, where they're moving towards is it's got to interact with mobile. If your signage doesn't interact with mobile, I don't know what you're doing. If it's not driving your loyalty program, it needs to be there. And once you get that connection, you can start, as you mentioned once again, that performance, the built-in performance analytics and the user analysis, right? Are you showing the right ads to the people driving the Beamers versus the Pintos, right? All that stuff is clunky right now, but it needs to get smoother. It needs to be in there by default. It's got to be easy to scale and easy to deploy, right? Of course, your call to action needs to be monetary based, right? And the more mobile interaction you have with your payment system, if you show them, hey, click here for half off wings or two for one wings, they got to be able to click on their phone, hey, hit me up, because you don't want to leave it to the people to be like, I got to call a waiter or waitress over and then say, oh, I saw this on the screen, and oh, can you get me that? You want instant, right? Everyone needs instant these days. You click that button, and bam, the wings are coming in 5 minutes, right? That's what basically needs to happen. So you can see how in the future model, right, the TVs, the screens, and retail environments, and this goes for healthcare as well. As Scott mentioned, healthcare, it can have a very relevant, up-to-date content loop as well, right? Even though a lot of the reasons people go to healthcare is mostly the same, it's probably not going to change, and it's, for years and years and years, you can still solve a lot of those other problems with driving your brand, right? That you need to focus on how to relax people and what sort of content, and is there social media feeds that have to do, was there a famous person who had this procedure done, or had and all this sort of ideas of how to link all this timely and relevant content into your user experience. That's where the real future is going to be. And I view, my personal opinion is that the net's going to be cast a lot wider. Currently, the way that YouTube's set up and a lot of streaming services is that you have basically the 1% and then it just drops off really hard. And what I think is going to happen is that you're going to have a lot more local influence, and it's going to have sort of like a tiered sort of messaging system, right? So you're not always going to be able to pull what Tim Cook thinks about your burgers, but you're going to be able to pull, just as Scott said, all those millions of Instagram people of what the photos that they took of food, right? And you're going to be like, hey, you can order this and look at how great it looked when this guy ordered it, right? So all that sort of reinforcement from local communities, they don't always have to be celebrities and things like that. So that's basically the whole idea. And the way that AOPEN basically supports that is we're really committed to the heavier computing loads, right? Basically all of this stuff is going to take, you can't just think of it of like, can I have a media player that plays one 4K screen, right? Well, what you really want is a media player that connects with your payment system, does mobile integration, maybe does some eyeball tracking, you know, and user tracking, and plays the screen. And for that, you need you need to support real browsers. You need to be able to change things instantly. You need to update code. You need to do all these things, because as we know, nothing seems to change, stay the same when it comes to this stuff these days. So that's why AOPEN is really focused on developing really extremely reliable mid-range power players, i3s, i5s, you know, not to drive, you know, 5 or 6 screens. It's really just to support this new type of infrastructure, right? So to sort of solidify what AOPEN and how we work with partners is, you know, we just want to create commercial, really, really reliable hardware, right? It makes your pilots better. It makes your brand look really good when you're in front of the end customer, because the less hardware, you want people focused on your platform, not the hardware. And if the hardware doesn't work, you're sort of sunk. You're talking about the hardware and not about how great your platform is, which is something, if you're a growing brand, you never want to do. Right. And so AOPEN, we always talk about, you know, we're your partner to scale, right? We're here to help you, you know, succeed and meet those challenges, those shipment challenges, you know, technical stuff, the provisioning challenges, all that sort of stuff, and be knowledgeable about all that aspects of business. And of course, the second way is, as I mentioned, the white glove. You can configure Windows, Linux, Android services, preload drivers, you know, change the kernel, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we work with our solution providers to make sure that they get the device they want and their end customers want as well. So, so the last thing I want to mention for this webinar is that we are really excited. In Q1 of next year, we're gonna execute on a hard channel bundle with UPshow. As he mentioned, you know, UPshow is just one of those types of solutions that works instantly. It's very turnkey. So this will be available if you're a reseller. Definitely check out this bundle. We'll advertise it early next year, and you should just be able to buy it, plug it in, and run with it. So definitely keep an eye out for that in the future. So to close this webinar up for the day, I think we're pretty much out of time. So the overarching theme is that digital signage needs to use new strategies, right, to drive engagement, right? It has to be relevant, timely. You can't just show people ads. You got to give people a reason to look at ads, especially young people, right? You're asking someone who's scrolling through a TikTok feed all day to watch ads. It's not going to happen. Right? So you have to think about content in a new light and why people are looking at it and why people should look at it, right? Of course, UPshow provides an extremely effective, easy to deploy Signage 2.0 solution that pushes customer engagement, right? You just talked about that. You know, it's all about your bottom line. It needs to be easy to manage, easy to deploy, gives you great analytics, links in all timely, relevant content, engages with people's mobile devices, drives loyalty adoption. You got it. And then the last thing is, of course, AOPEN's partnership model is that we, you know, we're of course part of Acer, and we're really here to try and give you the best hardware that you don't really have to think about it. It does what you want, and we can support, you know, national, global rollouts, and of course technical support as well. So with that, I think I'll close up the webinar and kick it back over to Chris.
First of all, thanks everyone for participating today's webinar. And once again, we want a special thanks to Scott from UPshow. Thank you for joining. And just as a reminder to everybody, the content and the recording from today are going to be sent out to all the attendees. Feel free to share with any partners, customers, or anybody that you see fit, anyone that couldn't have made the call. We'll have this on our AOPEN landing page, which features all of our webinars, current and past. So we'll make sure we have that shared along with all the links, contact information for UPshow, and our internal information. That'll all be sent out in the next few days. We'll send it to just about everyone. So appreciate the time. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.